Hi, my name is Mr. Paul and I'm an elementary math teacher development specialist. So, like I said before in the last video, we're going to be reviewing for the next few weeks because we finished the 5th grade curriculum. And today our objective is I can represent and solve multi-step problems involving the 4 operations with whole numbers using equations with the letter standing for the unknown quantity. I can represent and solve multi-step problems involving the 4 operations with whole numbers using equations with the letter standing for the unknown quantity. So that's our objective for today. And before we begin, I would just like for you to make sure you're ready. So go ahead and grab something to write with and something to write on. Something to write with, such as a pen, pencil, or marker, and something to write on, such as your math journal or notebook paper. Go ahead and gather those materials. And then, once you've got those materials, there's some things I wanted to go over before we move into our actual lesson. So, one of the things that we kind of struggle with this unit is that this objective is that a mistake that we make is not solving all the steps in a problem. So, in order for you to make sure that you're covering that mistake, a quick fix is make sure to label the value and what it represents after completing a step. Does your value answer the question? If not, continue to solve. So make sure you're solving all steps in the problem. And the next mistake that's commonly made is not recognizing equivalent equations. An example would be 84 equals 12 plus 26 plus m. This is the equation. This is the same thing as 84, or this is equal to 84 minus 12 minus 26 equals m. These equations are equivalent. We're adding these values to get to 84, and then we're subtracting these values from 84 to get m. So this is another common mistake that's made. And this is the quick fix, is to knowing that 84 equals 12 plus 26 plus m, and 84 minus 12 minus 26 equal m are equivalent equations. Sometimes it's best just to write them out. And all it really is similar to a fact family. You know that these numbers plus the missing letter will equal the total of 84. And then 84, which is the total, minus these values will give you the missing letter. Just something for us to think about as we go through the rest of the lesson. Now what I'm going to do is post a question up here and clear my board. So as I clear my board, it's best for you to know that these mistakes that we just talked about are something that can be easily fixed. All you have to do is take your time and to recognize these mistakes. Okay. This problem here says Miss Sanders is building a fence around the perimeter of her garden. The perimeter of the garden is 171 feet. Each section of fence is 3 foot long and costs $15. So what we have to do is, what equation can you use to find B, the cost of the section of the fence she needs for her garden? So for this particular problem or math story, is all we have to do is find the equation for this. So what we know so far is the perimeter is 171 feet. The sections is 3 feet. And then the cost per section is $15 per section. So in order for us to solve this problem, what we're going to have to do is take the perimeter, which is the total distance around this garden, and then we're going to have to divide that. So we're going to set up our equation, 171 divide 3, and this will give us the number of sections. And then when we get the number of sections, what we're going to do is multiply that by 15, and that will give us a total cost. Because we know that 171 equals the number of sections. So that's the missing thing we're trying to find, the number, the total cost of everything. In order to do that, we have to find the number of sections. So once we do that, I'm gonna set my equation up. We know this is the first step. All right, that's our first step, 171 divided by 3. And then we multiply that by 15, because once we find how many sections are, we multiply it by the cost per section, which is $15. And that will equal B. And that B represents the total cost of how much needs to be spent for the garden. So let's just do a quick review of this. We have our perimeter of 171 feet, and the sections are 3 feet. And the cost per section is $15. So we have to find out how many number of sections there are by dividing 171 divided by 3. That gave us the number of sections. And then we'll multiply the number of sections by 15 to find the total cost. And that's it. We have our equation. We don't have to really solve for it because the question just asks us to find the equation. And we're going to come across some questions where all we have to do is set up an equation, which can't just be as difficult as finding the answer. But again, if we take our time to map out our problem, we'll be able to definitely find the answers to these. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next problem where we're actually going to solve for the missing number. So I got to clear my board and make some space. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so I have another problem, and this problem is still falls under the same objective, except they give us the equation, and this equation that they gave us, we're going to use it to solve for the missing letter. And let me just make this equation a little darker for you to see. Okay, let me read the problem so that way we can go ahead and start on it. Mr. Huey packed 51 yellow pears and 67 green pears into a large crate. He packed 7 crates like this. Mr. Huey used the equation to find X, the number of pears he packed into all crates. X equals 51 plus 67 times 7. How many pears did Mr. Huey pack into the crates? I'm gonna read it one more time. Mr. Huey packed 51 yellow pears and 67 green pears into a large crate. He packed 7 crates like this. Mr. Huey used this equation to find X, the number of pears he packed into all crates. X equals 51 plus 67 times 7. How many pears did Mr. Huey pack into the crates? Okay, so to solve this problem, to find X, what we have to do is look at our equation and see that these numbers are in parentheses, so we have to solve for that first. So we're going to take 51 plus 67. 1 plus 7 is 8. 5 plus 6 is, 50 plus 60 is 110. And then I'll put my 110. That gives us 118. So we have 118 pairs. And these pairs that we have now, we know that this is all the pairs it has, but all these pairs go into these 7 crates. So what we're going to do now is that if we have 7 crates and each crate has 118 pairs, that means we're going to have to multiply. If you think about your get strategy, we know that we have 7 crates, which is our group, and then right here, 7 crates. Each one has 118 pairs, and we need to find the total. Okay, to find that total, we take 118 times 7. Seven times 8 is 56. There's my 6, and then my 50 up here. And because I'm done with 8, I'm going to cross that out. 7 times 1, or 7 times 10, gives us 70. Plus the 50 gives us 120. 7 times 100 is 700. Plus 100 is 800, which gives us 826. So what we have here is 826 pairs. So let's just review this problem. We had to add our pairs together. We had to add the yellow pairs and the green pairs to give us how many pairs go into a crate. Because he placed the yellow pairs, green pairs into a large crate. And he did this for 7 crates. So that's why we did the 51 plus 67 to get the pairs. And then after that, we took the sum here and multiplied by 7 because that's how many groups we have. And that gave us our final answer. So as you can see, having an equation given to you, we had to solve for that missing letter by following the steps here and knowing what comes first when whether we're adding, multiplying, dividing, or subtracting. So what we're going to do next is an independent practice problem on your own. So if you're at home, when I post this next problem up, you can pause the video, write down that problem. But if you're watching on live TV, on HISD TV, you can just follow along as I solve that problem. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Clear this board and set up our next problem. Okay, so this is our next problem that we have here. So again, if you're watching this on a YouTube video or somewhere on our HISD platform, you can go ahead and pause the video and copy this problem down in your journal or notebook paper. But if you're watching this on HISD TV, on live TV, then it's best for you just to watch me and follow along as I solve this problem. So let's go ahead and read the problem. Mr. Lopez packed 24 yellow pairs and 48 green pairs into a large crate for a customer. He packed 8 crates like this. Mr. Lopez used this equation to find X, the number of pairs he packed into all the crates. X equals 24 plus 48 times 8. How many pairs did Mr. Lopez pack into the crates? So this is very similar to our other problem. Same kind of story, but we have different numbers here. So we have to try to think and remember what I did earlier to solve for the pairs that Mr. Huey had. So now Mr. Lopez has the same story as Mr. Huey. So let me read this problem one more time to make sure I got all my information correct. Mr. Lopez packed 24 yellow pairs and 48 green pairs into a large crate for a customer. He packed 8 crates like this. Mr. Lopez used this equation to find X, the number of pairs he packed into all the crates. X equals 24 plus 48 times 8. How many pairs did Mr. Lopez pack into the crates? So we know there are 24 yellow pairs and 48 green pairs. (24 yellow pairs and 48 green pairs. All right, so now this is how many pairs we have, but we have to do what to this problem to find out how many pairs we have altogether? We're going to have to add. 4 plus 8 gives us 12. I put my 2 here and my 10 up here. 40 plus 20 gives us 60 plus 10 gives us 70. And that gives us 72 pairs. So we have 72 pairs. We have 72 pairs altogether, and that means he has 72 pairs in each of the crates he has. How many crates do we know he has? He has 8 crates. And then when the number is next to the parentheses problem like this, we know that we're going to multiply. So we're going to multiply 8 times the sum of this, which was 72. So here's my 72 times 8. Eight times 2 gives us 16. Bring my 10 there. 8 times 70 gives us 560 plus 10 gives us 570. So we have 576 pairs in all the crates. So he has a total of 576 pairs. So let's just recap this problem. We have to find out how many pairs he had altogether, because that's what's in the parentheses first, and then we multiply that by 8. And that gives us our answer of 576. So as you can see, going back to our objective, what we're doing is we have all these numbers and we're multiplying, adding within this equation. So it's multiple operations that we were doing in these equations and math stories we have. So I'm gonna post another math story for us to work on. So we have our next math story here. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go ahead and pause this, copy this down and solve for it, and then come back to us to see if you got it correct or not. And then if you're watching on HISD TV, you'll just follow along so that way you can see how I solve for this problem. And let me move that because I noticed there was a glare. So Ms. Vargas is putting in a fence around the perimeter of a playground. The perimeter of the playground is 120 feet. Each section of the fence is 4 feet long and costs $15. What equation can you use to find B, the cost of the sections of fence she needs? I'm gonna read it again. Ms. Vargas is putting in a fence around the perimeter of a playground. The perimeter of the playground is 120 feet. Each section of the fence is 4 feet long and costs $15. What equation can you use to find B, the cost of the sections of fence she needs? So let's break down this problem. We know that the perimeter is 120 feet. We know that each section of the fence is 4 feet long. And then we know the cost per section is $15. So we need to find out an equation for this. So to find this equation, let's think. We know that we know that the question is trying to find how much all of this is going to cost Ms. Vargas. So in order to do that, we have to find out how many sections there are. So we know there's 120 feet. And to find out how many sections there are, we have the total, we have 4 feet, we gotta divide by that 4 feet. So now we divide by that 4 feet, we get how many sections there are, and then to find out the price, we have to take $15 and multiply it with how many sections there are. So I'll put my parentheses because we need to solve for this first, and then we can multiply $15. And that will give us our B that we're looking for. I'll explain this again. So we have 120 feet, the total of how much we have, and we have to divide the section by 4 feet, because that's each section is 4 feet. And then we're doing that because we need to find out how many sections there are. So that way, each section we know that costs $15. It will get us to the B, the pricing of it all. So this is our equation. So To cover this objective, again, let me read it to y'all one more time. So let me read this objective to y'all again one more time. Oops, sorry. I can represent and solve multi-step problems involving the 4 operations with whole numbers using equations with the letter standing for the unknown quantity. So what we did today was 2 different types of problem that fall under that objective. We were able to write an equation for the information that was given to us, and we were able to solve with a given equation to find for that missing unknown letter. So this is definitely something that can help you when you go through your test, just for you to break down your answer choices and see how to come up with the equation, how to come up with the answer. And I just want to recap the mistakes that we talked about earlier. So the first mistake is not solving all steps in the problem. So for example, if we look back here, if we didn't solve all these steps right here, step 1, step 2, we wouldn't never find the answer to the problem. So we have to make sure that we solve all the steps. So after understanding these mistakes and how to solve the problem for the equation, when given the equation and looking for the equation, we definitely know how we can prepare ourselves when we're taking a test. So keep these tips and these advice in mind as you take your test or your work in class or anything that you take virtually. So I hope you're able to learn something today, and this review was able to help you understand this objective a lot better. Thank you for tuning into HISD TV. Until next time.